Hello again, it's Noob, and today we get to look at the 8-Ball Engineering Ultra Pick Mortise lockpicking tool. So this is a curtained lever lock, tensioner and pick wire set. This was kindly lent to me by a good friend. This wasn't sent to me for my review by 8-Ball Engineering or anything like that. It was literally just a friend lending me this, so no affiliation with 8-Ball, independent review, all thoughts my own, etc, etc. But very excited to have a look at this finally, purely because, you know, I've always wanted to have a look at this particular tool for a good reason. Now this is actually a multi-gauge curtain pick. What do we mean by curtain? Well, if we look at this lever lock, you'll see that there is this metal shroud here, and this is attached to a bigger cam-like assembly at the back. If I put my key in, get the key, you'll see that the curtain moves with the key, and then obviously the key will lift up the levers to the right height and the lock will open. So very cool. So that's what a curtained lock is, and that means that in this position it's very hard to get up to the inside of that lock with some pick wires. Let's get a pick wire here. It's very hard to do that because the sort of curtain is in the way, and it just makes it a lot harder to pick. So this was done as a security feature. Now, different mortise lever locks have different gauge keyways and therefore different keys. And you can see here that this one is relatively thin compared to this one. And this is a professional key gauge, and you see the keys for both. So this one here is actually quite a thick key, and I move it up, you'll see it actually fits in here. This is a 5-gauge key. And a corresponding 5-gauge keyway. This one, this era, is actually a 7-gauge key and goes into that 7-gauge keyway. Ultra Pick says that it can go from 8 gauge to 4.5 gauge. So that's 4.5, the thick one. See that go that? So it can definitely reach in. See, it's tapered, and it will tension a, what does it say, a 4.5 gauge and an 8 gauge. So if there was a curtained lever lock that was 8 gauge, it could do down to that thinness of diameter. So this kit comes with the nice case with this sort of what do you call it, egg crate foam, whatever you want to call it. It comes with 4 pick wires, left and right, long and short, so they're quite nice. I'll show you this. They are kinked because they are for reaching over the curtain. So you see you got 2 of those for well, they'll be that way around, right-handed locks, a long and a short. They seem to be polished on one edge, which is not too bad. They got a nice curve to it. I've seen worse. Not as good as a hand polished set, but not too bad. Then you've got the ones for the other way round. So depending which way you're picking the lock, from the inside or the outside, and the way the levers are, those kind of things. Long and short as well for the left hand side. This seems to be a 3D printed handle, which I half like the design, but you can see that it's not quite sitting flush. This pushes off by sliding like this, and the wire goes in by just sort of clipping in at that right angle. Then you slide this back on. I have a feeling that this could have been slightly better designed so that there's a guide running down here, and that clip runs across here as well in 2 parts. There's no reason why you couldn't have 2 parts there as well. I just think it would help tie this together. Does it really affect its the way it works? Nah, not really, but it just looks a little bit messy, if that makes sense. I think that could have been avoided. It does hold the lever wire in quite nicely, and the wires seem quite strong, and whilst they're not polished, they're adequate to use as they are. Clearly, the nice thing about a multi-gauge tapered tool like this is you don't have to carry around more than, say, just this tool. I have other mortise lever tensioning tools like this. This is a 5 and a 7 gauge, I believe, And these are very good, very strong, but they are limited to what locks you can use them in. It's either a 5 or a 7 gauge lock. This again gives you that range. You may come across a slightly unusual curtain lever lock which needs a gauge, a tensioner which is just a little bit different, and this might be the difference between you being able to get in or not. One feature of this turning tool is this center ridge. I don't quite know what this ridge here is for on either side. Maybe it's just aesthetics, I don't know, but you'll notice that that pick will run down that groove, and I find that that is quite useful. Let me show you how it goes in to the lock. So you pop in that turner, the groove butts up against the curtain there, gives you that gap to put in your pick. Then you can turn this round and you can see how, there you go, see that? This pick wire is now being guided by this center ridge. I have to say, I do quite like that. Let me quickly pick this lock. It's a bit of a fake pick because the leaves are all compressed by the cover, but you'll see how the tool works, and we'll pick a real lock without the clear cover, and then we'll get to some conclusions. So let's see this pick in action. I've got some focus lock on the lock itself. This isn't a real pick, if you like, because the leaves are all sort of compressed in this clear case, so they pick very differently to a lock with its normal case on. But the idea is you'd put this tool in at an angle so that the center ridge goes up against the edge of the curtain. Then you'd put your pick in, making sure it's on this side, and then turn it up like that. And then you can see how you've got your pick in the lock. You can turn this handle over to this side so that you can, get some good torque, and then you can just pick these levers up to their correct position as you go, wriggle around. And like I said, this is very, very, very fake. This particular picking. We'll pick a real lock just in a second, but I just wanted to sort of show you how this would operate just from the inside. There we go. So we got the open, of course we did. But yeah, that's sort of how it works. And then you could use this on the other side if you wanted, and it would come through, and you just swap over your tips. There you go. So yeah, it does seem to work quite well. It was at this point I wanted to demonstrate picking a 5-lever Union strong bolt lever lock, which is actually a 5-gauge keyway, a lot wider, which would mean that the tool would go in quite a bit deeper, as you can see here. Now what's interesting about this demo is that the sound on this video went absolutely crazy. I mean, so weird. It sounds like a robot. Anyway, all I've done is I've popped the tool in, I put the wire in, I've rotated it around. You can see that center tensioning fin, if you like, going down into the keyway and tensioning the curtain. I'm now picking my way through the lock, 1 lever at a time, finding those spinning levers, lifting them up, making a map of where I think the levers are, which I need to overlift next time are. I just want you to hear this sound. So here you go. 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're in a bit of a false set, so let's see if I can get us out of that. And yep, we got the open. Look at that. And yes, I could have reshot this, but I just thought it was quite funny. A bit of an insight into what it's like sometimes being a YouTuber when your equipment goes a little bit wrong. But yeah, it's actually a reasonably tricky lock to pick, this one. And you can see here how this tool is really, really stuck in there now. It really does bite into that curtain. It does give good control. You can move it back and forth, but when you pull it out, it's, well, you can see here, pretty tough. So on to some conclusions. You've seen the Ultra Pick work in that Union Strong Bolt. You've seen it sort of demoed and how it all comes together. And my overall impression of this, looking at the pros, is I quite like it. I have to say, I do quite like it. It does sort of suit my personal needs and styles. I do like the fact it's just one tool, quite well put together. It feels nice and strong and sturdy. I like the fact that it's tapered. It works, and as a just one tool, I quite like the fact that I don't have to carry around, say, multiple versions. And it does mean that if there are any slightly unusual gauges that you come across which are curtain, then this is more likely to fit in than trying to find a specific tool for a particular gauge. Not that there's anything wrong with these, and there are some advantages to these as well, not least the fact they don't get stuck in the lock, and they allow a bit more degrees of freedom of the pick wire. So one of the other pros of this, which again is a pro for me and my particular picking style, is I really like this central fin. It does help guide the wire, keep it from rotating out like this. That for me, I think I like it. I like that as a design feature. Now, that being said, it could be a con for people who like to be able to move their pick wire a little bit side to side and lift it up and stuff. So it depends on your picking style, but for me personally, I quite like this center fin. The wires do feel strong, get good feedback, and the handle is pretty nice when you use it. Any cons? Well, this is where it sort of blurs. The wires themselves are okay. They're not the best finished wires, but they're okay. They are quite sharp on the tip. Honestly, these could do with a little bit of work with some 1000 grit sandpaper maybe, just to polish up a little bit, make it a little bit smoother. Some people also like the tips to have a gentle curve to them instead of being as flat like this, but they're not bad. They can be used out of the packet. But again, a little bit of finishing on this would go quite well. Another thing that I think is a bit of a con is this design. I do like the sliding on and off design instead of having to have screws or anything. That I think is good. But what could have been good is just to extend these two fins this side of this center line, and then have the stop part just as, I don't know, maybe a few millimeters here and here. It doesn't have to be like particularly thick or strong, but I think it'd be great to have that closing mechanism, that dovetail on both sides, even if it's by an extra centimeter, like I said, on these portions. It would just mean that this would lie flat. It doesn't really make a big difference to how it operates and works. That's fine, but it just aesthetically looks weird on a premium pick set, and it's a strange design choice. Although I do like the 8-ball sort of pick design on this lollipop handle. It's kind of cute. Other cons are that this does, with these sharp edges, really dig into that curtain. I've mentioned it a few times in this video because it is significant. It does give good control over the curtain when you've got it in, but it's quite hard to kind of pull out. It really does bite in. And I think that they would have benefited maybe from making this softer. I think in a number 2 design on this, they should make it a little less bitey. You can see down here that there are some metal particles and just nicks on the edge of the tool from where it's bitten into the curtain from my testing. That being said, is it a massive deal? Not really. It depends on, you know, what you think to this. Now, the price of this, and this will depend on when you watch this, where you are in the world. Doesn't include shipping or VAT. But it's around the £225 mark. Like I said, that will change depending on when you watch this video and their pricing and all those kind of things. £225, not including VAT, is a premium price. That being said, this isn't wildly expensive for a professional lock picking tool. So I don't think that it is overpriced in any way. I just think it's another option. You have to bear that price in mind when you're looking at alternatives. Oh, one last little pro on this, which is a feature which I don't know whether it was an accident or a design, but you might see that this looks a bit grubby here. That was me. So what I was doing, and you could probably put a bit of tape on this and use a pen, but just for speed I was using a pencil, is you can mark on here maybe put a bit of tape around your pick. But what you can do is you can mark on here where the back of the lock is and the front, which might be about that. And then you can even mark off on here where you think your levers are as well. And that really helps when you're building up that map of where the the binding order is, and where you might need to slightly over lift the levers to get past the false gates, those kind of things. This flat surface was brilliant. If you look at some other picks like this, you'll see that there isn't anywhere where you can do that quite as easily. I just found that to be a really useful feature. I don't know whether it was like a design, an accident or a design, but I really liked it. I like the fact that I can more easily get onto the levers and go, oh, I remember that it goes binding order, I know 5, 3, 4, but 4 I need to lift a little higher so I don't go into that false gate. For me, that really worked out. So yeah, overall, I quite like this Ultra Pick. I do. I think that it's not a bad tool for people who just want one curtain lever tensioner which will fit into multiple locks, but it does have a few little downsides, not least the fact that it really bites into the lock and may not suit your picking style if you don't like this centre fin, but I personally do. I like the fact it's there as a guide. That suits me quite well. So yeah, I'd love to know your thoughts on this Ultra Pick from 8Ball Engineering. Let me know in the comments. I do read all the comments. I reply to as many as I can. If you like this video, leave a like. If you haven't subscribed, now's a good time to subscribe. And of course, I'll see you all next time.